Chapter 1: Christmas Eve Tensions. The snow came down in lazy, swirling flakes, each one catching the orange glow of the streetlights as it drifted to the ground. From the kitchen window, I could see the neighborhood slowly disappearing under a fresh blanket of white. Most houses were lit up with twinkling Christmas lights. Ours too, except for the top strand that had gone out a week ago. I meant to fix it, but between the double shifts at the plant and last-minute shopping for the twins, I hadn't found the time. Still, I felt good. Tired but good. This was supposed to be our night, a quiet, warm Christmas Eve at home. Just me, Samantha, and our 6-year-old twins, Aiden and Lily. I've been looking forward to it all week. The smell of baked ham filled the kitchen. The dining table was set with Samantha's red and green placemats. The good china she only brought out twice a year, and a centerpiece of candles surrounded by pine branches. Aiden was at the table already, bouncing in his seat, while Lily hummed a Christmas song to herself and spun around in her chair like it was a ride. I was carving the ham when Samantha walked in from the hallway, phone in hand. She didn't notice me watching as her thumbs tapped something quickly on the screen. She smiled at whatever she read, that small, private smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dinner's ready," I said, my voice a little louder than it needed to be. She startled slightly, then tucked the phone into her sweater pocket like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. "Yeah, I know. Just finishing up a text." "To who?" I asked casually. She didn't answer right away. She just moved past me, brushing the hem of her sweater against my arm as she reached for a wine glass. "Julie." She wanted to wish us a Merry Christmas. Julie was one of her co-workers at the boutique. Nice enough woman. Always seemed polite. But I couldn't help noticing that Samantha hadn't smiled like that at me in a while. We sat down, the four of us, and for a while, it felt almost normal. The twins chattered about Santa and presents, their voices overlapping as they argued about who would get up earlier to check the tree in the morning. I listened, laughed in the right places, poured Samantha a glass of red wine, and one for myself. But she kept glancing at her phone, sliding it out from under the tablecloth whenever she thought I wasn't looking. Her thumbs moved fast, and every time the screen lit up, her lips curved in that same little smile. "You're awfully quiet tonight," I said, keeping my tone light. She looked up, feigning surprise. "What?" "I'm listening." "Uh-huh. Anything interesting on your phone?" She rolled her eyes. "God, Lucas. It's Christmas Eve. Can we not start?" I raised my hands in surrender. "Not starting anything. Just talking." Her wine glass clinked a little harder than necessary when she set it down. "Maybe if you weren't working so much, you'd have something to talk about besides my phone." Aiden and Lily stopped mid-bite, sensing the change in tone. I forced a smile for them. All right. Who's ready for dessert?" They perked up immediately, and I went to the kitchen to get the apple pie. While I sliced it, I thought about the way she'd said it, working so much like it was a bad thing. I'd been killing myself with overtime to pay off the credit card she'd maxed on new furniture, and the trip to the spa last month, and the emergency car repairs that somehow cost more than my first car had. When I came back, she was bent over her phone again, fingers flying. I set the plates down harder than I meant to. She looked up briefly, then gave me that mock-innocent look that said what? Without saying it. We ate in relative quiet after that. The twins finished their pie and scampered off to the living room to watch Home Alone. I cleared the table, glancing at Samantha every so often. She didn't offer to help, just sat there with her wine, scrolling through something, smirking to herself. I came back and sat down across from her. "You okay?" She tilted her head. "Yeah. What? You just seem somewhere else tonight." She sipped her wine slowly, almost theatrically. "Maybe I'm just bored, Lucas. Not everything has to mean something." I swallowed the retort that came to mind. The one about how maybe she should try being present with her family for once. Instead, I just nodded, though my jaw was tight. An hour later, after the twins had gone to bed, I tried again. We were in the living room, the fire crackling, the glow from the Christmas tree making the whole place feel soft and warm. I slid closer to her on the couch, put an arm around her shoulders. She stiffened. Not much, but enough for me to feel it. "What?" she said without looking at me. "Nothing. Just it's Christmas Eve. Thought we could." I let it hang there, hoping she'd get the hint. She pulled away slightly, grabbing her phone from the coffee table. "I'm tired, Lucas. I stared at her for a beat. You're always tired lately. Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp now. You're always boring lately. That one hit like a gut punch. Boring? Yeah. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. You think that's exciting? You think that's, I don't know, attractive? I took a deep breath, forcing myself not to snap. I'm working my ass off for this family. For you. That's supposed to mean something. She shrugged, already scrolling through her phone again. Means you're never here. I almost laughed at the irony, but it came out bitter. I'm here now. She didn't answer. The clock on the mantel chimed 11. She stood, stretching in that way she knew drew attention, and said, I'm going to bed. I followed her down the hall, still hoping maybe we could shake this mood off. But when she reached our bedroom, she slipped inside, and click, I heard the lock turn. I stopped, staring at the door. Sam? What are you doing? No answer. I knocked lightly. Come on, don't be like this. It's Christmas. Her phone buzzed behind the door. A pause. Then my own phone in my pocket vibrated. I pulled it out. New message from Samantha. Losers sleep on the couch. Chapter 2, The Long Night. The couch wasn't uncomfortable, not really. It was just wrong. The cushions sagged a little in the middle, the throw blanket was too short to cover my feet, and the faint smell of fabric softener didn't do much to hide the fact that I wasn't where I belonged. My place was in our bed, next to my wife. But tonight, she made sure that wasn't an option. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the shadows from the Christmas tree lights flickering faintly on the walls. The house was quiet, except for the occasional groan of the heater kicking in. I pulled the blanket tighter around me, not because I was cold, but because the chill I felt had nothing to do with the temperature. What the hell had just happened? 1 minute we were in the living room, and the next she'd gone upstairs, locked the door, and sent me that text, losers sleep on the couch. Was she joking? It didn't feel like a joke. Samantha had always had a sharp tongue, but tonight, there was a deliberate edge to it, like she wanted to push me away. I turned onto my side, my phone in hand, scrolling aimlessly through my messages. No missed calls, no new texts, nothing to distract me from the growing knot in my chest. Maybe she's upset about something, I thought. Maybe I've been working too much. Maybe she feels neglected. It was possible. I've been picking up overtime for months now, coming home late more often than not. But it wasn't for me, it was for us, for the kids. A floorboard creaked overhead, making me freeze. I glanced toward the staircase, half expecting to see her coming down, maybe to apologize, maybe to tell me to come to bed. My heart picked up a little. Nothing. The silence settled back in, heavier this time. I closed my eyes, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. Memories from earlier in the week crept in, ones I'd try to shove aside. Tuesday night, she told me she was going out Christmas shopping with Julie. I've been fine with it, even offered her some extra cash for gifts. She'd come home almost 3 hours later than she said she would. I remembered how she breezed in, cheeks flushed, hair slightly mussed, carrying 2 small shopping bags that didn't look like 3 hours' worth of purchases. She kissed the twins good night, then leaned down to kiss me, and that's when I smelled it. Cologne. Not mine. Not the generic kind you pick up at the grocery store, either. This was sharp, expensive, masculine. Did you find everything you needed? I'd asked that night. She'd smiled too quickly. Yep, got some things for the kids. It's a madhouse out there. Then she'd gone straight upstairs. I told myself then that it was nothing. Maybe a store clerk wore that cologne. Maybe she brushed past someone in a crowd. Now, lying on the couch, I wasn't so sure. Another creak from upstairs pulled me out of the memory. This one was softer, like a footstep. My pulse quickened again. I stared at the ceiling, straining to hear. Still nothing. I tried to laugh at myself. You're imagining things, Lucas, I muttered under my breath. She's mad, that's all. Gary Roy, you'll talk, clear the air. No big deal. But the truth was, I couldn't shake the unease crawling under my skin. I rolled over again, punching the pillow into a better shape, and stared at the darkened TV. I thought about getting up, making some tea, maybe watching a late-night movie to kill the time. Instead, I just listened to the heater, to the occasional rattle of the window in its frame, to the sound of my own breathing. Somewhere between midnight and 1, I must have dozed off. A soft sound woke me. It took me a moment to place it, a faint, muffled laugh. I blinked, disoriented, and glanced toward the stairs. The laugh came again, just barely audible, but enough to make the hairs on my arms stand up. I sat up slowly, holding my breath, listening hard. It seemed to be coming from upstairs, from the bedroom. My first thought, maybe she was on the phone, talking to Julie. Maybe she was watching something funny on TV. That was reasonable. But at 2 in the morning, the laugh came again, slightly louder this time, followed by what might have been a man's voice. I couldn't make out words, just a low murmur. I rubbed my eyes hard. No, you're just hearing things. The alternative was too big, too ugly, to accept in the middle of the night. I leaned back, closing my eyes, forcing myself to believe it was nothing, that I was tired, stressed, and imagining it. That tomorrow, everything would make sense. Just wait until morning, I told myself. Wait until morning. Chapter 3, Whispers at Dawn. The first thing I noticed was the light, thin, pale rays sneaking through the blinds and cutting faint lines across the living room floor. The second thing I noticed was the sound of tiny feet padding across the hardwood. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that faint laughter again, imagined shadows moving upstairs, felt my jaw tighten until it ached. I must have drifted off sometime around 4, because the next thing I knew, Aiden's small face was peering over the couch at me. "Daddy," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder like he was sneaking contraband. My voice was rough, still heavy with exhaustion. Lily appeared next to him, her hair a messy halo around her head. Both of them were in their Christmas pajamas, Aiden in red with little snowmen, Lily in green with candy canes. Their faces were pale, eyes wide, like they'd just seen something they weren't supposed to. Lily leaned closer, lowering her voice even further. "Daddy, there's a strange man in Mommy's bed." For a second, my brain didn't process the words. They just floated there. Then it hit. My body went cold, but it wasn't the same hollow chill from last night. This was different. This was sharp, precise, like a switchblade sliding open in my gut. I pushed myself up to sit, rubbing my hands over my face, trying to keep my voice steady. "What did you say?" Aiden fidgeted, looking down at his socked feet. "We want to tell Mommy good morning, but there was a man. He was sleeping. In your spot." My fingers curled into fists. I made myself take a slow breath through my nose, then another. The kids didn't need to see what was happening inside me. I stood, forcing a small smile onto my face, the kind you use when you're trying to convince a child there's nothing to be afraid of, even when you're the one shaking. "Come here," I said softly, crouching down to hug them both. I felt their small arms wrap around me, warm and trusting. "It's okay," I murmured into Lily's hair. "Everything's okay. But I need you two to stay down here for a little while, all right?" Lily pulled back, frowning. "Is Mommy mad at you?" I looked her in the eye and shook my head slowly. "No, sweetheart. But Daddy has to take care of something. So I want you to stay in here. No going upstairs. Promise me." They nodded in unison, though I could tell they didn't understand. I let go and straightened up, walking toward the small table by the couch where my phone sat. My hand was steady, surprisingly steady, as I picked it up and scrolled to a number I'd saved weeks ago, but hoped I'd never have to call. I pressed the button, lifted the phone to my ear. The line clicked, and a low male voice answered. "Yeah." "They're ready," I said. No hesitation, no questions, just a quiet grunt of acknowledgement before the call ended. I slipped the phone into my pocket and turned back to the twins, who were now watching me with uncertain eyes. "Okay," I said, forcing warmth into my voice. "How about cartoons? I think we still have that Christmas movie you like." Aiden brightened a little. "The one with the snowman that talks." "Yeah," I said, moving toward the TV cabinet. "That one." I flipped on the screen, scrolled to the movie, and hit play. Bright colors and cheerful music filled the room, doing its best to cut through the tension that had settled over the house. I walked over to the hallway door that led to the kitchen and the stairs beyond. My fingers closed around the lock. It clicked into place with a soft but final sound. The twins didn't notice. They were already lost in the opening scenes of the movie, curled up together on the couch under the throw blanket I'd used last night. I stood there for a moment, watching them, my kids, my world, and let the steel in my stomach harden. Whatever was upstairs, it wasn't going to be there much longer. Chapter 4: The Crash. The morning sunlight had barely settled across the frosted lawn when I heard it, the deep, throaty rumble of engines. More than one, growing louder by the second. From my spot in the kitchen, I glanced at the blinds. Dark shapes flickered past, heavy vehicles pulling into position. The low crackle of radios filtered faintly through the winter air. The twins were still in the living room, absorbed in their cartoon, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break over our house. I stepped quietly into the kitchen doorway, my eyes fixed on the front windows. Shadows moved, not the casual stroll of neighbors out for a morning walk. These were deliberate, fast, coordinated. Then it happened. Bang! The sound of shattering glass tore through the house like a shotgun blast. Before I could blink, a flashbang grenade went off somewhere near the front door, a blinding pulse of light followed by a thump that rattled the picture frames on the wall. The twins yelped in surprise from the other room, but I was already moving, stepping into the kitchen and leaning against the counter, arms folded. I didn't flinch as the first black-clad officer crashed through the sliding back door, shards of glass crunching under his boots. Another came through the front, his rifle raised, scanning the room. Two more dropped in through the side windows, their movements precise and fast, voices low and clipped as they called out positions. "Kitchen clear," one shouted. They didn't even look at me twice. They knew exactly who I was and why they were here. Boots thundered up the stairs, the sound of a door being kicked open. And then, Samantha's scream. High-pitched, panicked, the kind of sound that strips the air from your lungs. "Lucas! Lucas! What the hell is happening?" I didn't move. Another voice followed, deep, rough male. Not mine. "Don't shoot. Don't shoot." The officers didn't respond to his plea beyond the quick, authoritative bark of commands. "Hands where we can see them. Get on the ground. Now!" More crashing, drawers yanked open, furniture shoved aside. Samantha's scream turned into a sharp, furious wail. "Stop! You can't just—" She was cut off by the sound of someone being dragged across the floor. The footsteps pounded back down the stairs, and then he appeared. The man, half naked, wearing nothing but sweatpants slung low on his hips, his wrists wrenched behind him in steel cuffs. His face was pale, his dark hair messy, eyes darting wildly around the room. I recognized him immediately, not because I knew him personally, but because I'd seen his face before, grainy and shadowed, on the evening news. Samantha stumbled down the stairs after him, still in the silk robe I'd given her last Christmas. Her hair was wild, her eyes wide with fury and fear. "What the hell are you doing?" she screamed at me, as though I was the one who'd kicked in our door. "Lucas, tell them to stop. Tell them this is a mistake." One of the officers, a tall man with a lined face and a steady gaze, approached me. His rifle hung across his chest, his gloved hands calm. "This is Daniel Cross," he said flatly, nodding toward the man now being shoved toward the front door. "Been hunting him for months. Wanted for armed robbery, assault, and 2 counts of homicide." Chapter 5: The Backstory Breaks. Samantha was fighting them. 2 officers held her by the arms as she twisted and thrashed, her robe slipping dangerously off one shoulder. Her voice was high and shrill, cutting through the air like broken glass. "Lucas, tell them. This is insane. What the hell are they doing here?" I stepped forward, my eyes locked on hers. "I think you know exactly what they're doing here. What are you talking about?" She jerked against the officer's grip, glaring at me like I was the one betraying her. "This is my house. You can't just—" The SWAT commander, a stocky man with a shaved head and sharp, assessing eyes, approached. His black tactical vest was scuffed, his earpiece buzzing softly. He spoke calmly, as if he'd done this 100 times, which, judging by his composure, he had. "Mr. Cole," he said, my name firm in his mouth. "Your call was right. It's him." I didn't answer. My gaze was still on Samantha, who looked from me to the commander with dawning confusion. "What do you mean his call?" she demanded. The commander ignored her and continued. "We've been looking for Daniel Cross for 3 months. Bank job in Phoenix, liquor store shooting in Reno, and," he lowered his voice, "2 dead in an alley outside Vegas." Samantha's lips parted, but no sound came out. The commander glanced at me. "You were the one who recognized him." correct?" "Yeah," I said. My voice was steady, but there was an undercurrent, steel wrapped in calm. Her head whipped back toward me. "Recognized him? What the hell does that mean, Lucas?" I finally turned fully toward her, my arms crossing over my chest. "It means I've known for weeks that you've been sneaking him into our house. And it means I knew exactly who he was before you did." Her face went pale. "That's not, save it." I cut in, my voice dropping. "You think I didn't notice? The late nights, the shopping trips that took hours, the way you started taking phone calls in the bathroom with the water running so I couldn't hear." She shook her head violently, as if denying it could undo the truth. "It wasn't, and the cologne," I said, stepping closer. "That sharp, expensive crap that doesn't smell anything like mine. I smelled it on you 3 nights ago. I smelled it on you the week before that. You didn't even bother to shower it off before crawling into my bed." Her mouth worked silently, like she was scrambling for a story. The commander watched the exchange without stepping in. He'd seen this before, the moment where the lies start to unravel faster than they can be patched. I looked past her toward the front door, where 2 officers were shoving Daniel Cross into the back of a black armored vehicle. His head was bowed, but I could see the faint smirk on his face. "You want to know when I knew?" I asked her. "It wasn't the smell. It wasn't the phone calls. It was the night I saw that black Ford sedan parked 3 houses down. Same one I saw on the news a month ago when they were talking about a suspect wanted for multiple crimes. The camera caught just enough of his face. It stuck in my head." The commander gave me a slight nod. "Good eye. Most people wouldn't have connected it." I kept going, my voice calm but sharp. "After that, I started watching. Every time you left the house, I'd check the street. That car would be there. Sometimes different spots. Sometimes a block over. And every time, you came home with that same distracted smile, like you'd just been somewhere you shouldn't." Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. I'd seen those tears before in different arguments, used like a weapon. "So I call someone?" I said simply. The commander raised an eyebrow. "Detective Grayson?" I nodded. "High school buddy. Haven't talked to him in years, but I remembered he made detective with the city police. I sent him a message, asked if the guy in the news footage was who I thought it was. And it was." The commander finished for me. "Yeah, it was." Samantha's voice was small now. You set me up?" I let out a humorless laugh. "No, Sam. I protected my kids. Protected my house. And yeah, I'll let you dig your own grave while I waited for the right moment." She tried to pull free of the officers holding her, but they didn't loosen their grip. "You had no right." "I had every right." I snapped, the calm veneer cracking for just a second. "You brought a wanted fugitive into my home. You let him sleep in my bed. You let our kids walk into that room this morning and see a stranger lying where their father should have been." She flinched like I'd hit her. The commander glanced toward the street. "We'll need a formal statement later today, Mr. Cole. But for now, we've got him." I nodded, my eyes never leaving hers. "Good. That's all I wanted." She was still staring at me, her face caught between shock, fury, and something else, maybe fear, maybe the realization that there was no coming back from this. But I didn't care what she felt anymore. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The slow burn patience, the late night doubts, the second guessing, it all led here. And now, the moment had come. Chapter 6, The Public Humiliation. By the time the officers started marching Daniel Cross toward the street, the commotion had already drawn a crowd. It started with the couple from across the road, Gary and Marlene, stepping out onto their porch in their robes, coffee mugs in hand, looking bewildered. Then Mrs. Chong from next door appeared in her thick winter coat, holding her little terrier on a leash. Within minutes, more people were coming out, some whispering to each other, some already holding up their phones. The morning air was filled with the sharp crackle of police radios and the hum of idling engines. The SWAT trucks loomed in the middle of the street, black and imposing, their lights flashing red and blue against the fresh snow. Officers moved in precise patterns, clearing the perimeter, their rifles angled low but ready. And right in the center of it all, Samantha. Her face was blotchy from crying, her hair tangled, the silk robe clinging to her like a flag of shame. The officers escorting her down the driveway didn't grip her roughly, but their presence on either side made it clear she wasn't free to walk away. "Lucas," she called, her voice breaking as she spotted me stepping out onto the porch. "Please, tell them. This isn't what it looks like." I stopped at the top step, looking down at her. Every eye on the street seemed to turn toward me at that moment. Neighbors, strangers, even a few of the officers. My voice came out low, cold, and sharp enough to cut. "You locked me out so a fugitive could keep your bed warm." Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Gary's coffee mug froze halfway to his mouth. Mrs. Chang's dog gave a sharp bark, startling her into tightening the leash. Samantha shook her head frantically, her tears catching the morning light. "That's not true." "It's not." One of the younger guys down the street lifted his phone higher, clearly getting a better angle for his recording. "Tell them, Lucas," she screamed again. "You know me. You know me." I didn't answer. The words sat heavy on my tongue, but I wasn't going to give her what she wanted, not now, not in front of the man she'd been hiding in my house. The officers didn't slow as they guided Daniel Cross past her toward the waiting vehicle. He didn't look back. If anything, he seemed to enjoy the attention, a faint smirk playing on his lips like the whole thing was just an inconvenience. The first video must have already hit social media by then, because I could hear the faint ping of notifications from somewhere in the crowd. People were whispering names, trading quick theories. A teenage kid across the street muttered, "Holy crap, that's the guy from the news," and his friend elbowed him to be quiet. Samantha glanced at the growing audience, her breathing quickening. "Stop recording," she snapped at no one in particular. "This is private. This is our—" She was drowned out by the sound of another car pulling up at the end of the block, the driver leaning out the window to get a better look before pulling out their phone too. The commander approached me quietly, speaking low enough that only I could hear. "You might want to get back inside before this turns into a circus." I glanced over his shoulder. Too late. Inside the house, I could see movement, two small faces pressed against the front window. Aiden and Lily, still in their pajamas, their little hands flat against the glass. They were watching everything. I stepped back toward the door, my chest tightening as I caught the expression on Lily's face, confusion laced with something darker. Aiden's brow was furrowed, his mouth a thin, uncertain line. They didn't wave when they saw me. They just stared. In that moment, I realized something I hadn't let myself think about before. No matter how I explained this to them, no matter how carefully I chose my words, they would never see their mother the same way again. And maybe they'd never see me the same way, either. Chapter 7, The Emotional Fallout. The street had emptied by the time the last SWAT truck rumbled away. The flashing lights faded into the distance, leaving behind nothing but tire tracks in the snow and a silence so heavy it pressed against the windows. Inside, the air still smelled faintly of the chaos, boot leather, cold wind, and the sharp tang of broken glass from the front door window they'd breached. Aiden and Lily were curled together on the couch, their small bodies tense, eyes wide and fixed on me as if I had the answers to a test they didn't know how to study for. I sat down in front of them, not on the couch but on the carpet, so I could be at eye level. I rested my hands on my knees, taking a moment before I spoke. "Hey," I said softly. My voice came out rougher than I wanted, but I didn't clear my throat. "You know how sometimes grown-ups have to go away for a little while?" Lily nodded, her fingers twisting the hem of her pajama top. Aiden didn't move. "Your mom," I continued, forcing each word out slowly, "is going to be away for a bit. She has some things she needs to take care of." Aiden finally spoke, his voice flat. "Because of the man in your bed?" The question punched the air out of me. I could have lied. I could have said something about misunderstandings or accidents. But I'd promised myself when they were born that I would never talk to them like they were stupid. Because of the man in her bed, I corrected gently. And because he did some very bad things. The police had to take him away, and her, too, so they can figure out everything that happened. Lily's eyes glistened. Is she coming back?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know, sweetheart. Not for a while." She slid off the couch and into my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck. Aiden stayed where he was, staring at the floor like he was trying to burn a hole in it. I held her tight, feeling the fragile warmth of her against me, and I hated Samantha in that moment with a clarity that scared me. Not just for what she'd done to me, but for the weight she'd just dumped onto our children without a second thought. When they were settled with a cartoon playing in the background, I stepped into the kitchen. The quiet there felt different, not peaceful, but raw, like the house itself had been flayed open. That's when it hit. The anger came first, hot and immediate, rising up in my chest until I had to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. Then betrayal, not just at her sleeping with another man, but this man. A fugitive. Someone dangerous enough to bring a SWAT team into my home on Christmas morning. Relief followed, strangely enough. Relief that Daniel Cross wasn't here anymore. That my kids weren't in danger of waking up to something worse than whispers. That for the first time in months, I wasn't walking around wondering when the next shoe would drop. And finally, the strangest feeling of all. Liberation. Like a rope that had been quietly strangling me for a year had finally snapped. I leaned against the counter and let myself breathe. One by one, the little signs I'd ignored replayed in my mind. The late-night shopping trips that left her smelling faintly of cologne I didn't own. The urgent bathroom calls with the water running. The sudden interest in locking doors that used to stay open. And her phone, always face down, always locked, always followed by a quick forced smile if I happened to glance in its direction. I told myself it was stress. I told myself she was tired. I told myself I was imagining things because I was working too much. I told myself anything except the truth. The phone rang, jolting me out of the spiral. I looked at the screen. Samantha. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at her name. I could picture her on the other end of that line, sitting in a holding cell, eyes red, voice ready to drip with the same syrupy guilt she'd used every other time she'd been caught in a lie. I knew exactly what she would say. She'd call me E in that soft voice she used when she wanted to disarm me. She'd tell me I misunderstood. She'd tell me she loved me, that it wasn't like it looked. I set the phone down on the counter and let it ring. The sound echoed through the kitchen, each tone stretching longer than the last. Then it stopped. The silence that followed felt cleaner. I didn't pick it back up. I didn't want to hear her voice. Not now. Not ever, maybe. And with that thought, I turned back toward the living room, where Aiden and Lily were waiting, the only people in this house who still deserved the truth. Chapter 8, The Last Conversation. The county jail smelled faintly of bleach and something older, something that clung to the walls no matter how much they scrubbed. The air was cool and stale, humming faintly with the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. I hadn't been here in years, not since a charity outreach event with my old union crew, but the layout was the same. Metal detectors, heavy doors, and the unblinking stare of security cameras tracking your every move. The guard at the desk checked my ID, his eyes flicking up once, as if to silently confirm I knew exactly who I was here to see. 15 minutes, he said, sliding the visitor pass across the counter. I walked down the corridor toward the glass partition. My boots echoed on the polished concrete, each step a steady drumbeat of purpose. I wasn't here for answers, I already had those. I wasn't here for a fight, either. I was here to end something. Samantha was already sitting on the other side, dressed in the loose, faded orange of county-issued clothing. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot, the gloss stripped from it. But her eyes, those same eyes that used to pull me in, were sharp, alert, and calculating. When she saw me, her lips curled into something halfway between a smile and a sneer. Well, look who finally decided to visit. I took the seat across from her, the cold of the metal chair seeping through my jeans. I picked up the phone receiver, holding it loosely. "You wanted to talk," I said flatly. She leaned forward, her own receiver pressed against her ear. "You set me up, Lucas. Don't try to deny it. You knew the cops were coming. I called them. I cut in." Her mouth fell open for a fraction of a second before she recovered. "You what?" "I called them," I repeated. "And if you're going to pretend you didn't know who he was, don't bother. I'm not here for a show." Her voice sharpened. "I didn't know." "He told me." I slammed the receiver down on the counter, just hard enough to make the guard glance our way. The sound jolted her into silence. "You didn't know?" I said, leaning in so my voice carried through the thick glass without raising it. "Then why the text you wouldn't let me see? Why the nights you said you were at the store, but came back smelling like someone else's cologne? Why lock the bedroom door and laugh at me from the other side?" Her jaw tightened. "You're twisting things. You've been working too much, you've been distant, and I know," I said, cutting her off again. "Don't make this about my hours. Don't make this about stress, or kids, or any of the other excuses you've got stored up. This is about you. You lied to me over and over. You brought a wanted criminal into my house, into our kids' home." For a moment, her mask cracked. Something flickered in her expression, not guilt, but irritation. She hated losing control of the story. "You think you're better than me?" she said, her voice dropping to a low hiss. "I know I am," I replied. She tilted her head, a mocking little smile playing on her lips. "You could never do better, Lucas. Never. You've always been too plain, too safe. Men like you get one woman willing to put up with you, and that's it. That's your ceiling." It was surreal, hearing her say it while dressed in an orange jumpsuit behind bulletproof glass, her wrists still faintly marked from cuffs. Then she did something I didn't expect. She leaned closer to the glass, her voice softening into that syrupy tone she'd used 100 times to disarm me. "But you know what, baby," she said, a smirk curling her mouth. "I can still be that woman for you, even after all this. You know I'm the best you'll ever have. The way I—" "Stop," I said, my voice low but sharp enough to slice through her sentence. She blinked, caught off guard. I leaned in until my forehead almost touched the glass. My eyes didn't leave hers. "You're right," I said, my tone calm, almost gentle. Her smirk returned, thinking she'd gotten to me. "I know I am. I can't do better," I continued, not looking away. "I already am." I let the words hang there for a second, just long enough to see the satisfaction drain from her face, replaced by a flicker of something raw and unguarded. Then I set the receiver down, stood up, and walked away without another word. Chapter 9, Rebuilding. The first morning without Samantha's presence was eerily quiet. Not the suffocating kind of silence I'd felt when she used to give me the cold shoulder, but a lighter, gentler one, like the house itself could finally breathe. The twins were still asleep upstairs, and for once there was no rush, no tension humming under the surface. Just a faint tick of the kitchen clock and the smell of fresh coffee. I promised myself one thing after that last visit to the jail. Everything from here on out was going to be about Aiden and Lily. No more walking on eggshells. No more excuses. That weekend, I sat them down at the kitchen table. They looked at me with those wide, searching eyes that had seen too much for their age. "Kids," I began, keeping my voice calm, "things are going to be different from now on. But I promise you, different doesn't mean bad. It means safe. It means we can focus on the fun stuff again." Lily fiddled with the string on her hoodie. "Are we staying here?" I exhaled slowly. "Not for long. I think it's time we find a new place. One that's just ours." Aiden frowned. "But what about Christmas?" I smiled. "Christmas is wherever we are together." Over the next month, I put the house on the market. Every creak in the floorboards reminded me of a night I'd stayed up wondering where she was. Every smudge on the wall, every faint perfume trace in the bedroom felt like a weight. Letting go of it was easier than I expected. Packing became a family affair. The kids helped box up their toys while I sorted through old photographs. Some I kept, others I tossed into a cardboard box labeled past. The day we closed on the sale, I felt a strange mix of nostalgia and relief. We moved into a smaller, 2-bedroom house across town, nothing fancy, but warm. The kind of place where the kids could ride bikes in the driveway, and I could grill on the weekends without wondering who was watching from behind half-closed blinds. The first night there, Aiden and Lily helped me hang string lights in the living room. We ate pizza on the floor, laughing when Lily accidentally tipped her soda over and we had to scramble for paper towels. "Feels like home already," Aiden said between bites. And for the first time in years, I agreed. I started making small changes for myself, too. After years of putting in overtime shifts and neglecting my health, I signed up for a gym membership. The first week was rough. I was winded after 10 minutes on the treadmill, but there was something grounding about pushing myself physically. Mornings became my time. I dropped the kids at school, hit the gym, and let the burn in my muscles wash away whatever lingered from the past. Slowly, I noticed the difference. Less weight on my frame, more energy, a steadier mind. One Saturday afternoon, I took Aiden and Lily to the park. The air was crisp, the playground busy with families. I sat on a bench, sipping coffee, watching Aiden climb the jungle gym while Lily zipped down the slide. That's when I noticed her, a woman sitting a few benches down, reading a paperback while keeping an eye on a little boy in a Spider-Man hoodie. She glanced up, caught me looking, and smiled politely. We ended up talking while our kids played. Her name was Anna, a single mom who'd moved to town 6 months earlier. Her laugh was easy, the kind that didn't feel rehearsed, and there was no trace of the sharp-edged games I'd grown used to with Samantha. "So," she asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "you come here often?" I chuckled. "You just set me up for the world's cheesiest answer." She grinned. "I like cheesy." It wasn't a date, not yet, but it was the first time I'd felt that faint spark of curiosity in a long while. Over the next few weeks, we bumped into each other again at the park, sometimes swapping snacks for the kids, sometimes talking while they chased each other in the grass. I kept it light. I wasn't ready for anything heavy, but it was nice. At home, things were settling into a rhythm. The kid began to laugh more, fight less. We had family movie nights on Fridays, pancake breakfasts on Sundays. The air in the house was different now, lighter, untainted by slammed doors or whispered phone calls in the hallway. One night, after putting the twins to bed, I stepped out onto the back porch with a beer. The stars were sharp against the winter sky, and for the first time in a long while, I realized I didn't feel restless. There was no Samantha-shaped shadow hanging over me, no drama lurking just out of sight, just the hum of the neighborhood and the knowledge that my life was, piece by piece, becoming mine again. The absence of her chaos wasn't emptiness, it was space, and I was finally filling it with something worth keeping. Chapter 10, The Lesson. Winter had returned in full force, frosting the edges of the mailboxes and layering a soft white blanket over the driveway. I wasn't rushing, though. My mornings had slowed since the chaos of last Christmas, and the twins had adjusted beautifully to our smaller home. Their laughter filled the rooms now, a sound I'd almost forgotten in the tension of the previous year. I stepped onto the porch with the mail, pulling open the box to find the usual stack of bills, a grocery flyer, and tucked neatly on top, a heavy white envelope with Samantha's name printed in black. For a second, I hesitated. My fingers traced the envelope, remembering the woman who had once held my trust like it was a fragile ornament to be dropped at whim. Then, without another thought, I slid it open. Divorce papers. Her signature was sharp, controlled, even for prison. There was no plea for reconciliation, no hint of remorse. Just legal terms, clauses, and the formality of a life severed. I read the pages methodically, letting the words settle. Custody arrangements, property distribution, financial separation, all mundane details, all necessary, all final. I leaned back against the kitchen counter and exhaled. No anger this time. No flash of betrayal. Just clarity. The twins appeared in the doorway, curious as always. "Daddy, who's that from?" Lily asked, her hand resting lightly on my leg. I smiled, brushing a finger through her hair. "It's just paperwork, sweetie. Nothing to worry about." Aiden frowned, suspicious as only 6-year-old boys can be. "Paperwork?" I nodded. "Yeah, grown-up stuff. But it's okay. We're fine." They seemed satisfied with that answer, drifting away to start their morning routine, unaware that the letter represented the end of a chapter one had carried silently for months. I pulled a pen from the drawer and scribbled a quick note on the cover sheet before signing the papers. "Thank you for freeing me." The envelope felt lighter in my hands than I expected as I walked down the porch steps to the mailbox. I dropped it in, imagining it traveling back to the prison, the words carrying more weight than any courtroom could deliver. The rest of the day passed in calm domestic rhythm. I cooked pancakes while Aiden and Lily set the table, spilled syrup, and giggled over small arguments about who got the first bite. It felt ordinary in the best way, the ordinary I had craved while living under Samantha's shadows. Later, I sat with the twins in the living room, moving a few last gifts under the Christmas tree. The lights cast a warm glow across the room, reflecting off the ornaments we had hung together. A snowstorm whispered against the windows, frosting the edges of the glass, but inside, the air was alive with anticipation. "Are you going to open them now?" Aiden asked, eyes wide. I shook my head with a grin. "Not yet. We wait for mommy to... I stopped mid-sentence, realizing that word no longer fit in our lives. For the day to really begin. Lily tilted her head, sensing the change but not quite grasping it. It's different, huh? I nodded. Yeah, it's different, but good different. The best different. Christmas morning arrived crisp and bright. The twins bolted downstairs, their laughter ricocheting off the walls as they tore into the wrapping paper with reckless joy. I watched them from the doorway, coffee mug in hand, leaning against the frame. Aiden squealed as a toy car zipped across the carpet, crashing spectacularly into a pile of books. Lily twirled with a doll in hand, shrieking with delight when it talked back to her. The sight sank into me like a warm tide. These were the moments I had fought for, the moments I had been too blind to see when everything else was falling apart. I called out gently, "Hey, slow down. Don't tear the paper faster than the toys can survive." They both froze for a second, looking back at me with wide eyes before laughing again. The pure, uncomplicated laughter of children who feel safe and loved. It was then, watching them, that I realized something I had never allowed myself to fully accept. Samantha's betrayal, as devastating as it had been, had given me something I didn't know I needed. Space to rebuild, space to breathe, space to focus entirely on the people who mattered most. The warmth of the tree lights, the smell of fresh pine mixed with cinnamon and chocolate, the unguarded joy of my children. It was more precious than anything I'd ever had. I set the coffee mug down and sat on the edge of the couch, letting the twins climb into my lap with their new treasures. Aiden held his toy car out, pretending it was flying. "Look, Daddy. Zoom." Lily hugged her doll to my chest, murmuring, "It talks to me, Daddy. Isn't that funny?" I ruffled her hair. "It's very funny, kiddo." We stayed there for a long while, the three of us entwined in the quiet magic of the morning. No hidden phone calls, no closed doors, no shadows of a past life hovering in the corners. Just laughter, warmth, and presence. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside briefly, watching the snow fall across our small front yard. It coated the cars, the walkway, the bare branches of the maples. The world was clean, fresh, and still full of possibility. For a fleeting moment, I thought about Samantha, about the cage of lies and betrayal she had built around me, about the chaos she had left behind. But then I shook my head and smiled, feeling the weight of her absence not as a loss, but as a gift. The best gift I ever got was the day she locked me out. I turned back to the warm glow spilling from the windows, the laughter echoing like music. Inside, Aiden and Lily were tearing paper from their gifts, shouting over each other, their eyes shining. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man standing on the edge of uncertainty. I felt complete, because this was home. This was peace. And this was everything I had fought for. The past was behind me. The future, bright and untangled, waited for us in the soft glow of Christmas lights and the laughter of my children. The final image that settled in my mind, the one I knew I'd carry forever, was the three of us together on the couch, tangled in blankets, unwrapping gifts, and laughing. No fear, no doubt, no shadows, just the warmth and love of a family I had chosen to protect, nurture, and rebuild. And with that, I felt a rare and profound certainty. The life I had now, free from lies and betrayal, was more than I could have asked for. The best gift I ever got was the day she locked me out.